Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Behind the Group podcast. I am DJ Keo.
And I am Basil Barrington, and we are back with something totally different. And if it goes
Mhm.
well, maybe this is something we can do in the future, because there are some things we can
Yeah.
do in terms of verses and things like that. You guys see the Chiron.
Mhm.
We're talking about Star Wars versus Star Trek. Let me see if I can do this here. Oh, look at that right there, dude. This is my AI image right here for real. This is crazy. Let me ask you this here.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So when did you first come upon Star Wars or Star Trek? And which one
I
was first?
okay. So here's the thing, right? For Star Wars, I was introduced to that first,
Mhm.
and I watched it completely out of order. I saw The Empire Strikes Back first. That was my first Star Wars movie, and then my next door neighbor. And I was a little kid. My next door neighbor, he had some Star Wars toys that he got for Christmas, and I went over by his house and we're playing with them. And I was like, "Oh, I'm in this. This is some hot fire right here." Right?
Mhm.
I didn't even know what Star Trek was. I didn't know anything about it. Oh, there's the other thing. It came out. I think it's almost around the same time. Star Trek was out in the 70s, wasn't it?
Star Trek
The original.
Star Trek, check this
I think it
out.
was in the 70s.
N-
70 something, 77,
Check this out.
76.
Star Wars, Star Wars or Star
Mhm.
Trek? Which one are you talking about?
Star Trek. Star Trek was first.
Star Trek was first in 1966, and it aired first in Toronto in Canada. That's where it
Yeah.
first aired. And then 2 days
Yeah.
later, it aired in America. So Canada had it
Yeah.
first.
So I know Star Trek was first,
Yeah.
and then Star Wars came out like
70
77,
something.
78, something
Let
like
me
that.
see.
I can't remember the actual, but I knew it was later. But like I didn't I got into Star
77.
Star Wars in the 80s.
Mhm.
Like when Empire Strikes came out, like when it got to HBO, and I'm sitting around. I watched Aliens, and then Star Wars came on, and I was like, "Oh, this is fire! I rock with this." I
Mhm.
didn't even know Star Trek existed. Like, because it's the thing. As a kid, it wasn't like how today we're bombarded with stuff. Like you had to go find this thing to know about it. Like if you didn't know about Dungeons and Dragons, this thing didn't exist to you.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna bump into somebody talking about Dungeons and Dragons, or like
Right.
an
Like
ad's gonna come on
at
your
the coffee
Instagram feed.
shop.
Like if you yeah, if somebody didn't talk about it to you, it didn't exist.
Right.
And so for a long time, my whole worldview was Star Wars
Mhm.
for a long time. And then I saw the Return of the Jedi, and then I saw the original Star Wars. I'm like, oh, I'm in.
Mhm.
This is my life right now. Star
Excuse
Wars
me.
is my thing. This is my bag.
So
And
wait a
for a
minute.
long
The
time, I don't
first
think
time you saw it on HBO, not in the theater?
no, no, no. I never went to theater when I was a kid. My mom was like, I'm not taking you to theater. Like, it's a
Dude,
waste
I
of money.
saw I saw the first release in the theaters. I saw it in the theaters, right?
Nah, man. I saw that at home. And I was watching it by myself. And I'm like, I was on TV. Let me go to HBO. All right. Okay, this is a space battle. All right, cool, cool, cool. Because I saw Dune around the same time. So I saw Aliens,
Mhm.
Dune, and Star Wars all around the same time frame. And that was for me, I was like, space, right? It's the only thing that matters is space. That's
Mhm.
like for my worldview for everything as a kid. I was just all about space. But like that all that stuff. So like I got a very good introduction to sci-fi and the culture and all this kind of new techniques and ideas all like when I was
Mhm.
like 7 or 8. Like I was a little kid. I was like 7 or 8. That was it. It was just me watching it by myself. And I'm like, yo, I dig this. I don't think I saw Star Trek until um I was doing Boy Scouts, and I did like went camping, and I saw Next Generation. This is the crazy part. I saw Next Generation first
Mm.
before I started learning about the original Star Wars. Like everything's
Wow.
out of order for me.
Okay.
I didn't even know there's an original Star Trek. I saw Next Generation, and I saw Worf and Picard, and it was back before when number one he didn't have his beard yet.
Right.
So like he's still fresh faced out the academy, like
Mhm.
looking like a bum,
Still
and he's
thin,
getting tossed
still looking
around.
thin and
Yeah,
whatnot,
yeah,
you know? Mhm.
He's getting tossed around the spaceship with Worf trying to do nonsense before the show got really, really good. 'Cause I don't think Star Trek Next Generation didn't get good till like season 3. After they got rid of what's that the chick? What's the girl's name?
Who?
She was the security, Tasha
Oh,
Yar.
yeah, Tasha Yar. Well, she ended up they did get rid of her, but then her mother came
Yeah,
back. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. They
Mhm.
brought her back
Right.
as it's like, but like the show. This is the thing. The show got better after she was gone. And Riker grew his beard, and then the show was on and popping from then on out. And I was like, I'm a fan of this too. But like for me, I saw everything out of order, and I think I saw the best stuff first before I got into everything.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like so I didn't know that there's a different version of this or there was another movie before this. I didn't know any of that. I just hopped in, just on and popping from the beginning. Everything's good and going, and so that I think that helped me shape my view about Star Trek and Star Wars. But I think more than anything else, I've been a fan of Star Wars because I did it. I did it first. But what about you? When did you get into this thing?
Wow. So I was like well, I was I was too young to understand what I was watching when Star
Yes.
Trek came
Oh
out. You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? But
Mm,
I do remember my brother watching it because he was the one who introduced me to it. He was the one who
mm.
took me to see Star Wars, the first movie, right? So when we went there, you know, and
Okay.
it was just like crazy. And like after the movie, everyone was clapping. This was a movie theater filled with black people, you know, to the
Yeah,
rim, you
yeah,
know, and
yeah.
people were like
Yeah,
clapping. We were in a mezzanine. I was like, wow, this is crazy, right? Back then you were able to buy the what were they? The VHS tapes for each, you know, season. So he had all these
game
tapes,
changer,
right?
man.
So he had all these tapes, and like
That
he would just watch them. And then once it started coming on TV, in terms of me
mhm,
just being able to watch it, I think I got into it probably. It came out in '66. The first Star
mhm.
Wars movie came out in '77, right?
Yeah, yeah, around
Oh,
then.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's when I probably got into Star Trek, and I was like,
Mhm,
wow. But it was kind of cool because you had these it was you know, whereas with like the movie with Star Wars, it was just like this thing was going on. Whereas like with Star Trek,
mhm.
it was a TV
Yeah, it's
series, so
ongoing.
it was a
Yeah, it's
different
just
mission every,
ongoing.
you know, exactly. So I was like, wow, this is
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
cool. You know, and I did watch every movie, every Star Wars movie that came out, I watched them when they came out in the theater,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because when Star Wars came out, dude, it was epic. The
It
first
was a big
movie,
deal,
dude,
man.
and
For
then
people who
right,
are alive now, they don't understand
they don't.
how big of a deal
It
Star
was
Wars was.
huge. I
Like,
mean,
it shut down cities, man. Like, the amount of attention and stuff like that, like I kind of wish that the current generation, like people who were born like in 2000 or whatever, could have experienced the pandemonium that happened because of these franchises. Like it was such a big deal, a monumental deal. Like people's lives change. Like people are doing stuff in science and technology because of these movies.
yeah, listen, and it was really interesting how George Lucas did it too. He was just like, so the New Hope, what was that? That was like
Mhm.
basically he started off with like the fourth movie and then worked
Yeah,
his
yeah,
way
he's
down.
all the way in the 4th movie, like, we're
Yeah.
just going, like, don't
And
worry about
then
backstory, you don't need that, we just
right.
going.
And then the fourth movie that came out was the first movie, The Phantom Menace, right? And I was just like, oh,
Mhm,
okay. So out of the six movies, we have the first one, we have The New Hope, we have The Empire Strikes
mhm.
Back, we have Return of the Jedi, The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and also
Yeah,
Revenge of
Revenge
the
of the Sith,
Sith. Right. So
which
out of
is my
those six,
favorite
yeah,
movie.
out of which
Revenge of
one
the
is
Sith
your
is my
favorite
favorite
movie?
movie.
Hmm.
Revenge of the Sith by far, and you know why? Because
Mine
I
too.
think
Mine too.
that's the first time that we got to see you know the Sith and the you know the Empire at full strength
Yeah.
with the Jedi's at full strength
Hmm.
doing a battle.
Yeah.
And the fights on Revenge of the Sith, I've gone back and because I have the Blu-ray DVD stuff, and I've gone back and just watched the fights. Like I like the movie. I like the movie,
Hmm.
especially because I think It story wise, Empire is such a monumental movie, but for me, the fights of Revenge of the Sith are it's worth the price of admission, especially the Obi-Wan Darth Vader fight. That's one of the best fights
That was
on
sick,
planet
wasn't it?
Earth.
That
You're
was sick.
fighting lava, man. Like, what
Mhm.
are we talking about here? Like,
So,
yo.
so check this out. So, this is the interesting thing about Star Wars, right? I mean, coming
Mm,
from, this was created by such a brilliant mind like George
yeah,
Lucas, right?
you cannot be a normal thinking person to
You're not,
come up
he's
with
not
this stuff.
normal, right? So,
Yeah, you
okay,
have to be unique.
right. So after the Revenge of the Sith, we had The Force Awakens. What do you think about that film?
Okay, here's the thing, right? I watched I've watched the last 6 movies in the theater, right?
Hmm.
I was there like day 1. When I had a chance to buy my own ticket, go there by myself or with friends, I did that for every
Hmm.
Star Wars movie after that, right?
Hmm.
And initially, I liked The Force Awakens, and then the more I thought about it, the more I hated it. And the reason being is that I felt like it looked like Star Wars, it talked like Star Wars, but it didn't have the heart of Star Wars. And like it was kind of like they're projecting you, hey, you like lightsabers? We're gonna talk about lightsabers. But like for Lucas, that was not the point. That was just a thing. That was a tool. Like if you had a keychain or
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying, like you had a hat. It's just a thing. But like they made it into the most important thing for the new movies rather than, oh, this is a tool these guys have. Don't worry about that. It's not important. This is the thing. The storyline is the important thing. And so for the last 3 movies, I've I've despised them more and more as each day goes on. And the reason being is that they didn't have a plan and they didn't have heart. It's more so, well, this is the thing. Because like George Lucas made stuff to sell toys too, right?
Right. Yeah.
But but there is a whole storyline that was going on here about something important that was happening about evil empires. What would happen? How could something take over the galaxy, the whole galaxy? How could you do that? Love. Foundation for what is good versus evil, like basic stuff, like things that you're like cultural things, like ideas about what it means to be something and what it means to fight against something, that kind of stuff, right? Plus some fights. And then they had this 6-story arc, incredible story about this little kid that grows up to become a monster because of love. And that's it. That's the story of Star
And
Wars.
he's a
Because of
Jedi.
love.
And he's a
And he's a
Jedi.
Jedi. He's the good guy who
But he's
turns
in love.
evil because of love.
But he's in love. Let me
And then
say
you have
mhm,
these other 3 movies that got nothing to do with any of that. I'm like,
nothing.
F that, yo.
When you say the other three
F
movies, you're
that.
talking about the Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker.
I hate those movies so
What about
much, man.
Rogue One? What about Rogue One, the Star Wars story?
I liked Rogue One because they got the feeling of Star Wars, and that's the
And,
point. They had the look, they had the style of Star Wars. Rogue One got the feeling of, because what they did was they put this in between the thing that was going on, and so it worked better because there was guidelines of what you can and can't do.
mhm,
Like we can't have Darth Vader fighting these guys because he's busy doing something else right now. So or he doesn't exist. Like I'm saying, like it's like the argument they had very strict guidelines. But like the last 3 movies, they're just doing whatever they want, and it showed. They didn't know what they're doing. And this is the other part. More than anything else, it showed that this cannot be done without George Lucas.
yeah,
Cannot be done
it's over.
under any
Once
circumstance.
once he got his bag, because I think he got like $5 billion for this or something like that, right?
Mhm.
You saw
Yeah.
the quality starting to go down. I lost faith in Star Wars at around, well, the solo movie was just corny as all get out for real. I mean, that was just like
Bro, I was
completely like
punching air in the theater when I
that
saw
was
that.
stupid, right? They
I
came
was with my
back with
girlfriend and
this.
she's like, "Why are
Mhm.
you so mad?" I'm like, "Yo, you see this
This joint
thing? This is
sucks for real, right?
travesty."
It's just like it was like a younger Maverick Solo, and it's just like this is not Star Wars, right?
It's
So
not Star Wars.
they lost me from that point forward. They lost me. They did
Mhm.
make up on two things, right? Three things, really, three.
Mm, yeah.
For me, Star Wars, The Clone Wars, the animated series, man, this
Lucas
is
was involved in that
the
though.
baddest. This series, do you know it's 7 seasons. Do you know how many
Mm.
times I've watched the Clone Wars, the entire, franchise of
Clone
the
Wars
Clone
was
Wars?
good, man. It was
I
very
watched that
good.
joint all
And
7 seasons for about like maybe like 5 or 6 times. Guess how I got introduced to it?
how?
Yo, so at the time I was working at a university
Mhm,
in this robotics department, right? And so I was around all these like tech geeks and everything, right? And so in the
mhm,
college newspaper, they would always post things that you can watch if you have some free time. And one of the
mhm.
things they listed to watch was the Clone Wars, right? And then they
Okay.
would have these discussions about it, right? And then I started watching it and I was like, this joint is sick. Now, Clone Wars is
Yeah.
dope. So
Mhm,
let me take you here, right? You got the Clone
mhm,
Wars, Star Wars Rebel, no, right? and then, and we were talking about this before, then they released The Mandalorian. The only
mhm.
thing that saved The Mandalorian was it was released during the lockdown. It wasn't a great show. It's not a great
100%.
show. It's
100%.
just not a
And
great show.
this is the problem with modern Star Wars is
Mhm,
that you gets the benefit of the doubt because people have the nostalgia about this original thing that everybody loved. Like everybody. I don't know anybody who hated Star Wars. You could have been like, well, I'm not a fan of Star Wars. I like Star Trek or whatever. But like nobody hated it.
mhm.
Everyone's like, oh, this is cool or this is not for me. But like the Mandalorian got by because
Of the
it had that
lockdown.
nostalgia, the
Hmm.
nostalgia element, and
Hmm.
then you have nothing else to watch on
Nothing,
TV
nothing
element.
to do,
It's
nothing to
two
do.
things together.
Yep.
These two things are together,
Hmm.
and it kind of fits you in a box. And you're like, well, I can't go outside. All right, Star Wars. Okay, I'll watch that. Like that's all it was. It's the
So,
perfect timing. And you
so
can show the longer the show went on, the worse it
the
got
worst it
because
got,
you're further
dude.
away from the lockdown.
The worst it
That's a
got for
fact.
real. So
Yeah.
again, I definitely love the first 6 movies and maybe one of the other
Mhm.
movies. I think Rogue One was okay. Yeah, I'm gonna say
I
Rogue
liked
One.
Rogue One.
Mhm.
I thought it was good. I thought it was
So
really
when
good.
you talk about the
You know,
mhm.
I liked it because it was a bloodbath, man. Everybody
Yeah,
died. I was like, yes,
yeah. So
yes.
when you
Nobody wins in this.
no no one was winning in this joint. So when you talk about the TV series, so after that, okay, so
Mhm,
I'm like Rogue One. I'm like, okay, so that's 2016.
mhm,
Clone Wars came out in 2008. I didn't get introduced to the Clone Wars until like
mhm,
2015 or something like that, right? But then you had
mhm,
Star Wars Rebel. That sucked. The Mandalorian. It was only good because that was the only thing on TV during the lockdown. Then
mhm.
they released the Bad Batch, which the Bad Batch is just like the Clone Wars. That's Dave Filoni. So listen,
Yeah,
Dave Filoni's gonna kick butt on this stuff, right?
yeah.
And then you had Star Wars Vision. Don't know what that is. That's like an animated joint, right? And then it just started getting worse from there. The Book of Boba Fett, total
Good
trash.
lord,
I don't
man.
even think they're
Good
coming back with this.
lord.
I think this is canceled, right? Boba Fett is
It's
canceled.
done. They
It's
can't. Nobody wants to see that.
okay.
Nobody wants to see that.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. We watched that
Good
joint, and
lord,
what did we
man.
get? We got some fire in the last episode, the last 15 minutes of the episode of the season. Ahsoka, which was a complete failure.
Ahsoka had too much freedom, and the guy went off the
I
rails. It
mean,
got
they were
silly,
playing today's music in Ahsoka. I do not like
bro.
space
Every
film
time I see
sci-fi
a
like that.
sci-fi show like this, and they're in a club, I'm like, stop, yeah, stop, like, stop.
So listen, let's talk a little bit about Star Trek, and then I want to compare the technologies of the two franchises, right? So
Okay,
again,
yeah,
I got
yeah.
into Star Trek like around in the late 70s, right? And I
Mhm,
saw like the original series. My brother had all the episodes on VHS tape, and then they would show it like on it wasn't called the
mhm,
CW back then, but it was called something else, right? Um, and
yeah,
then so these are the TV series, right?
mhm.
You had the original series, and then they came out with an animated series like in 73,
Yes,
right?
yes, which I saw. I
Right.
saw a little bit of it. I haven't seen
And,
the
th-
whole thing, but I
and
saw a
then
little
in
bit of it.
87, Next Generation sort of killed it. Then you had Deep Space Nine, that's a cult classic. Um,
Mhm,
I really like Next Generation was my favorite, but then when Voyager came out, I was like, oh, that's kind of sick right there.
I rock Voyager, man. When 7 of
Yeah.
9 came on the show, I was like, okay, all right, I see you, Voyager. Like, I see where you're going with this. I see the
En-
vision.
Enterprise was I'm actually still watching Enterprise today. And
I
it's
listen.
very
I
slow.
liked Enterprise when it came out. I was one of the
Mhm.
few people who watched it,
Really?
and I liked it because it was different. It wasn't exactly like Star Trek. It was like a newer prequel type version of Star Trek, and they're learning on the job. And I think the problem for Enterprise was you didn't have the aliens everybody expected, and because it's a prequel, you're trying to get away from what everybody's expecting.
Yeah.
And had they done Enterprise now, it probably would have been doing well. I think it would probably have been okay. But like they didn't have the budget because they were on
It was
what was the,
corny.
the TV channel? Was it UPN or no, it was
UP.
it was
It was like
before
CW. It was like
before the
CW at that
CW. No,
time.
but
Hmm.
because they merged all the channels together.
Right.
Because they had WB, UPN, and they merged
Oh,
them
this was
together.
on WB. This was on WB, I
It's
think.
WB.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it was
Yeah,
on
yeah. So like
WB.
it was a unique thing that you got to go deep into your cable box to get to,
Right.
right? And there's a lot of stuff going on at the time. So it kind of it got lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that for Star Trek in particular, I don't know what it is about Star Trek, but the first two seasons of every Star Trek is awful. It's bad. And then
Yeah.
season 3 happens, they get on the rails and they
Yeah.
start cooking. Like
Hmm.
they're in the kitchen like cooking fire from season 3 on for every series, every show.
And
Except, we'll take that original Star Trek, but like
yeah,
Next Generation,
Deep Space
Voyager,
Nine, Voyager,
Deep
all that
Space Nine,
stuff. Hmm.
all three of them, the first two episodes or seasons were just okay to
Hmm.
trash.
You
I
know,
hated Deep Space Nine when it came out. I thought it was a hot garbage. And then
got
what
better.
happened? Cisco grew a beard.
Yeah.
And I was
Hmm.
like, okay, all
Right.
right. I see the vision. They
What's
started doing the wars over there.
what's
I'm like, yo, this
what
fire.
so then after like Enterprise you had Discovery. I love Discovery. It kicked off
Mhm.
like first season and then they sort of cut it short. They gave us 4 or 5
Yeah.
seasons because
You
they
need
wanted to
Star
come
Trek needs
out.
7 seasons, man.
Yeah,
I'll
they
be
wanted
honest.
to,
It needs
and this
7.
and Discovery was really good. They cut it short, and then they had Star Trek treks. That was like it's corny. Picard, we
Mhm.
both watched Picard. 1 and 2 was kind of slow. First and second season was kind of slow, and then the
Terrible.
third season, fire,
Season
fire,
3,
fire,
fire.
fire. Right.
Fire. Fire.
Lower Decks, corny.
Yeah.
You have Prodigy, corny. Strange New Worlds, it's cool, but it's still kind of corny.
I
Um,
never watched it. I don't know. I haven't
yeah,
watched it.
it's kind of corny, right? And then you have all the
Okay.
films. You had the original motion picture, Wrath of Khan. You know,
Mhm.
Undiscovered Countries. First Contact, Insurrection, all this stuff, right? Once
Yeah.
after Nemesis, which was really good, then you had Star Trek and you had Into the Darkness Beyond, right?
Mhm.
Were those J.J. Abrams movies?
Yeah, there's Abrams movies.
Okay,
And
see,
the first 2 I liked. I know
uh,
people hated them. I liked the
okay,
first 2 Star Trek
so
movies. The
let me
third
say
one was
this,
hot
right?
garbage.
So
And I
okay,
blame
this
Simon
is
Pegg because he wrote it. It's Simon
this
Pegg's fault.
this is what I'm saying. I always say this. It's like, okay, this is a sci-fi. We're like in 2025, 30,
Mhm.
36, whatever, right?
Mhm.
Why are we listening to today's music? I mean, I know it's just like historical context or whatever, and I'm just like, it's corny, right?
I
So
don't I don't like it, man. I
the
don't like
first
it.
J.J. Abrams movie was it was definitely like hard hitting blockbuster, graphics, visuals, the whole
Yeah.
nine. And then we
Yeah.
get to the last movie that Star Trek released, which was Section 31.
Like, good
Section
lord, man.
31. I'm
Good
still trying to
lord.
figure out why did they release Section 31 like that?
How did it get made? That's the question I have. How did
Yeah,
this happen?
that was complete
Because
garbage, y'all.
it feels like there's Star Trek and Star Wars had the same problem. There's no direction over there.
Yeah.
There's continuity, there's no consistency, and no one has a plan. Like you before all of these franchises, 'cause when Roddenberry was alive, and a little bit after he died, there was still a plan. Like they still were doing things. Things were in order.
Mhm.
Stuff fit. Like it fit into the cube of this is what this franchise is, this is what this franchise is. And Star Trek and Star Wars have both fallen off the rails. And here's the thing, they both have given us little bits of good stuff every once
Mhm.
in a while, but overall, the overall foundation of this thing is crumbling and falling apart. And there are two things I love. I love both Star Trek and Star Wars. And I'm talking about, yeah, I understand. I've been watching these things since I was a child, right?
Yeah, for real,
I'm a
man.
grown man now,
This
right?
stuff,
I've been watching things since
these
I was a little
franchises are
kid,
ingrained in us, dude. They are ingrained in
ingrained in
us.
us. Yes,
Star Trek used to come on after school. So when you got home,
yes,
you were able to watch it, right? And then they started showing it
yeah.
at night. Here's the weird thing, right? Both
Mhm.
franchises, Star Trek and Star Wars, they basically have about the same amount of content that they release. So let's talk about this
Yeah, yeah.
because
It's
we're
both are
geeky,
fairly deep in content
right?
as far as TV shows, movies, everything. Fairly deep.
So let's talk about this because we're both like super geeky guys, right? So, okay, when it comes to like
Yeah.
Star Wars and Star Trek, the technology, I'm going to say
Mhm.
this right out the gate so people will know, right? Um, the technology with Star Wars, I mean, I'm sorry, the technology with Star Trek
It's way
blows,
up light years
blows
above
Star Wars
or
away.
light years above Star Wars.
What's weird about Star Wars is this: how can you come out? This is why I'm not really into a lot of Star Wars stuff now, right? How can you
Mhm.
come out with all this new content, but we're still on the same old dusty planets? We still have lightsabers. We still
I
have
like that.
dusty. We have
That's
dusty old
because
ships. But okay, but check it out, right? Okay, so you made a film and
Mhm,
and released it in 1977, and
mhm.
then your last film, let me see here. Your last film was released in well, not 2025. It was released in maybe 2018, right?
Mhm.
Nothing has changed. Dude, you mean to tell me
Well,
like, but check it out. You mean to tell me that okay, if we are in, I'm just putting out like a futuristic year out there, let's just say we're in
mhm,
2600. Let's say you
yeah,
release something in 2600. Then 100 years later, you mean to tell
mhm.
me the technology is still the same, right?
But there's two problems with this, all right?
Mhm.
And this the thing that I liked about Star Wars. Star Wars is supposed to be old. It's supposed to be ancient. It's not supposed to be new. So like I like that they merged a wood and like, well, not wood, but like it had like you know carpentry or just like blocks of bricks and stuff like that with
Mhm.
lasers and holograms and space travel and whatever. But like, here's the thing: like, there's a central city that's got modern technology that everyone goes to,
Mhm.
and then you have Coruscant. Coruscant is new, vibrant. They got lasers, everything,
Yeah.
holograms, all that stuff, right?
Dude, they have
And
clubs
then
there
out
too. They have
they got
clubs.
clubs there too. They
Mhm.
had a club in Attack of the Clones. There's a club out there.
Yep.
But you're out, way out at the edge of the galaxy
Yeah.
with the poor folk
Mhm.
who live on a farm, and they don't got nothing.
You're
they
doing
ain't got
space
nothing. They got
drugs.
a hover bike that kind
Mhm.
of hovers a little bit, is broken down. They're trading. There's bandits stealing their robots and stuff. They got nothing. So like, I like Star Wars because Star Wars gave you the two. You got
Mhm.
Coruscant, that everything's modern, super technology, and then backyard, whatever. You got some bots. You got some mechs that they're falling to pieces,
Mhm.
and you got duct tape on the arm and hoping that thing lasts for another season. I like that. I
Uh,
like that. But like,
mhm.
Star Wars is supposed to be way in the past,
Yeah.
in a galaxy far, 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 far away.
Right.
So that's the reason. This is why George Lucas is a genius. He made it so that this did not look like anything you've seen before.
He
Whereas
did it. Good job at
Star
it too.
Trek is
Mhm.
beholden to, well, this is us in a couple hundred years,
Mhm.
like, but
That
Star Wars is a
technology's got to
galaxy
change.
far
You got to
away
upgrade the
that don't make any
technology.
sense.
Mhm. George Lucas, I will say this about Star Wars, right?
Mm,
When you look at again the first movie, it was like completely off the shelf. It was dope as
You've
anything.
never seen anything like that
Dude,
before,
like I
and that's
said, I'm
why
in
it
a
works.
theater. We're in the theater. It's the theater of black people up top in Jersey.
Mhm.
Everyone's clapping,
Clap
right?
it.
Yeah.
Clap it, man.
So when I
For
saw
the
the
white
sort of
people.
right, when I saw the sort of technology in those first 6 movies, and I was like,
Mhm.
a lightsaber. I'm like Jedi's,
Mhm.
just like, dude, it was just some other stuff, right? You really didn't get to like when it comes to Star Trek, you
Mhm.
started like it seems like every new series you got like new tech. Obviously with Enterprise, it's all old tech. Enterprise should have been
Yeah.
before the original. It should have been before the original one. So like around Next Generation, I remember
No,
I'm
no,
like,
Enterprise is before the original Star Trek, before, it's
no,
before all of that. Yeah, it
mm-mm.
is. Enterprise is before all that.
Enterprise
It's
is not
supposed to be.
is not
No,
before
I'm saying the
oh,
timeline of Enterprise is
well, the
before.
timeline, yes, but they released it like it. Yes, you're
Yeah, yeah, oh,
exactly
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
no,
yeah, it
exactly right.
released
I'm
well
glad you
after.
said that. You're exactly right. The
Yeah, yeah, but I'm saying
timeline
with the
is
timeline
the
of
first,
it,
right?
it was a trash Enterprise ship they had.
But
It
oh
was
my goodness,
garbage.
right? And then they try to sexify it with the Vulcan female. You know what I'm saying? So I was just like, okay. So the thing about Star Trek is every time it seemed like all these, again, I'm not talking about Deep Space Nine because we know what that
Mhm,
was. They did get a bit into the Dominion War, which was really interesting to me. Um,
mhm.
and once you got into, let me see here, it was like because after Next Generation, then you had like Voyager started like really ticking up, sort of Star Trek. The movies were great, but the series they were pretty cool. And then once they got
I
into
think the series is
Discovery,
better than the movies,
yeah, once they got,
except,
I think so too. I
First
think so too.
Contact. First Contact was, like, top pyramid for and I
What about Star
liked
Trek Generations?
I did like that movie. I thought it was just okay. Did I freeze up?
Yeah, you froze up a little bit, but it's
I didn't
cool.
like Generations.
Mhm.
I didn't like it. I wasn't a big fan of Generations. I liked, Wrath of Khan was amazing. And what's the 3rd Star Trek movie? Is that the
Um,
Voyage Home? No.
that would be
Uh,
let me see. No,
I
that
can't
is
remember.
what is that here? The Search for Spock, which was kind of
It's just
draggy.
like
It was draggy,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I
It was
didn't like that one.
draggy. A little
I
sluggish
think the
even, you know?
Voyage Home was okay.
Nemesis was
I
hard for
like
real.
I rocked with that. I thought that was hard, but, like, the Insurrection, I was like, "Ugh,"
But then after
like,
that, the
okay.
next 3 movies was J.J. Abrams, so you got basically like a Transformer style of like movie, and then they
Yeah,
came
like,
out with
he
like
did.
yeah, then they came out with
Light
like
beams across the screen, man. It was all
no,
like,
no.
it
And then
was
you
too
got
much light
Section
beam.
31, which is going to be its own franchise, so they released the first movie, so they're going to come out these next movies. So what they're doing now is they're not doing a TV series, they're
Mhm.
doing like these short movies that are like mission based. So, that's
I
pretty
think
cool.
they're doing it to save money because
Yeah.
it's cheaper to make the movie than the show. I think that's what that's about. But
Now,
it should have been it should be a TV show. This thing Section 30, it should be spread out and let some stuff breathe. And it can't be a comedy. I don't know what the hell they're thinking. Like it's a dark show. It's X Files in space. What are you doing here? It's not comedy.
okay, so I'm going to say
Just
this,
scroll through
right?
Molly cracking jokes and doing backflips. Like, what are we doing here, man?
I'm
This
going to
is-
say this. So in Discovery,
yeah.
they didn't introduce, but they had an entire season where it was based
Mm,
on Section 31 basically trying to like destroy the Federation. Section
mm.
31, you know what I'm saying? In Starfleet, right?
It's supposed to be dark, and you're
Yeah.
supposed to be seeing stuff that shouldn't exist, or they have to stop it before it gets in the wrong hands. Like that's what I want to see Section 31 for.
Yo, Section 31 during that season of Discovery with Section 31 as the nemesis, right?
Mm,
Um, dude, the tech they had in the show,
mhm,
the new way of transporting yourself. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy, right? However, it's kind of
mhm.
weird because like Star Trek really didn't go get into like the whole animation thing. They had the original Star Trek animated joint, and then they had some corny stuff, shortly
Yeah, it's some
thereafter. But
silly kid stuff, but
it just it never hit.
I think that's kind of a failure on their part. Like they should have
Mhm.
had like adult, not like adult where it's violence and sex, whatever, but like an adult version of the show for adults. But I think for them, they're thinking that we can't get enough people to watch it to make it worthwhile, so it makes enough money. Because they can have that is a SoCal animation where everything looks like like everyone's mouth looks like a jelly bean,
Right.
like that silly thing, or
Exactly.
like the yeah, like that silly
Right.
stuff. Like
That's like
man, I hate that. I
I
hate it
mean,
so much.
you see that's too
I
much. It's
hate it,
like some
man. I
tech guy
hate
was like,
it.
"Hey, this
Like,
is pretty cool," you know. So let me just
mm,
I want to talk a little bit more about Section 31, the Star Trek Section 31 short film that they came out with. Well, it wasn't a short film. It's a short film compared to like a 2 hour film. It
the
was
crap.
really,
The
dude,
adjective is crap film.
yeah, crap
That's what
film.
you're
You
supposed
had
to trash film.
Michelle Yeoh. The other actors, I don't care about. You did have Jamie Lee Curtis too,
Yeah.
right? But I'm like, I've never seen Control. I've never in my life seen
What are you
Control. I've never
doing?
seen Control. Now all of a sudden you're
I
showing your face as a hologram.
I feel like the people who did that movie was like, oh, I'll stick it to these guys. Let's ruin this franchise. We'll show them. Like somebody did this who hates Star Trek. They're
Yeah,
like, I'll show you.
yeah.
You
So,
can't boss me around. I'll show you. Like that's
but
what they did.
but they're coming out with like again, they're gonna release more Section 31 movies, you know, so it's gonna be a
I don't
franchise.
want to see that.
Hopefully,
I don't want to
and
see this
oh, and here's the thing.
slapstick nonsense.
Michelle Yeoh is gonna be in all of them, right? So I'm just like, I
Is
don't
it gonna be
believe that.
silly or is it gonna be serious? Because I don't
And
want to
here
watch that.
and here's the thing, right? Michelle Yeoh as Philippa Georgia, in
Mhm.
Discovery was beast mode. She was beast
Mhm.
mode, dude. You know, come on.
Mhm.
And I was just like, wow. So wait a minute. We took Philippa Georgia from Discovery, who kicked butt. She's now
Mhm.
in this Section 31 joint. This mission was about trying to find an urn. What was in the urn? What did it do?
Don't don't get me started, man. I hated that movie so much. You know what? I was
Why was it
watching it and it was
created?
so bad that it became funny. And I was drinking. I'm not gonna lie, I was drinking when I watched that movie. I might have
I
smoked
should have
something.
been drinking
But
when I
like I
watched
was
that
like,
movie
this
for
was
real,
terrible.
because that joint
I had to
sucked.
numb the pain with something to make my life better because of how awful that movie was.
Yeah,
It was so bad.
it was
I
crazy,
don't
man.
when did Star Trek become slapstick and silly, goofy
you,
comedy? When did
you
that
know,
happen?
this is what's going on like in Hollywood, right? And I'm not even
Mhm,
talking about movies in general. I'm talking about Hollywood, America, right? Because you don't see
mhm.
this in Europe. You don't see it like, you know, I watch a lot of Canadian joints and they're serious. Dude,
Yeah,
again,
you just gotta
first of all,
yeah.
like, again, you know, like Star Trek aired in Canada first.
Mhm.
so now when I'm looking at, I'm just like, wow, why do we need all this sort of corniness going on, this slapstick? Why, you know, why are you
I
jumping
don't
off
know,
of
man.
a why are you jumping off of a spaceship on a motorcycle? Why is a motorcycle still available and around in 2600? I mean, like, I'm just putting that year out there, but see, it's stuff like that that just kind of trips me out. And I think when you
Mm.
do stuff like that, you also diminish the cachet of the actual franchise, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah. So when it comes to technology, who has it? Star Wars or Star Trek?
I think Star Trek has more
Yeah,
or more cooler
they
I should say
definitely
cooler. I
do.
say
They got it. They
they have
got ships,
more
the
tech,
whole 9.
but the problem is that we don't get to see the new tech in Star Wars. You don't see it. You don't even barely hear about it. Like you don't know it exists.
Check this
Like they
out.
have stuff
Mhm.
there, but you don't really see it. Like
So
stuff's going on in Coruscant. There's other planets in the core that's got technology, but you don't see it. Like you don't. They just everything is out and way out in the boondocks of the edges of space. That's all you get. You don't get city stuff. City Star Wars you don't get. So
no,
we don't. I won't really. I can't say for certain because I don't know. But stuff I can see on screen, Star Trek is light years above
yeah.
for technology.
You
But
know,
the problem is that Star Wars was designed to be ancient technology.
yeah,
It's supposed to be the whole universe is supposed to be lived in.
yeah.
It's supposed to look like people been here for thousands of years
mhm.
and we just moved in. Like that's what it's supposed to look like.
So this was a very interesting sort of like podcast we are doing today. Again,
Mhm.
Keo is a Star Wars person. I am a Star Trek person, but I think that we need both franchises to like really start bubbling up and putting out good content because
Yes.
I think we really need both of them to like produce really good content. And don't just skimp on things, like know who you are and
Mhm.
put out that content and hire the people who have made really great content for you, like the third season of
Yes.
Picard. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
something like that. So, well, there you have it. Thanks for checking out another episode of the Behind the Groove podcast. I am Basil Barrington.
I am DJ Keo.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, show the Behind the Groove podcast some love for real. Alrighty. Until next time, peace.
All right.